did your surgery go?
It went well. Good evening. If anybody's online, if you could let me know if you can hear me.
How's your foot?
Getting better day by day.
So early. No, that's Paris. That's what I'm saying. Trump is Indiana, Kentucky, and West Virginia.
I think those were expected.
Right.
Years ago, I went to a Moody Blues concert at Boston Garden on the first night of the World Series between the Red Sox and who was it? I forget who it was, probably St. Louis. And hardly anybody paid attention to the band. Just hoping it's not going to be the same thing tonight. So
The madness will still be there after class, I'm sure. Oh, I wanted to ask you, do you know Hillsdale College?
I've heard of it. Yeah.
So they have like online courses. They're basically just lecture series.
Yeah. She sent me a.
To the Paradise Lost
Yeah.
class. Yeah, I'm thinking about signing up for it just to kind of see how it compares.
Well, I'm sure it'll be more in depth.
Well, yes, but just to see like what maybe we didn't cover or just different perspectives on things.
Yeah. Is that
Yeah,
free?
It would be interesting.
Oh, I might just do that.
Yeah, I took their they had a Genesis course.
Hmm.
I took that.
It was really good. I really liked
Yeah, I bought that Genesis Bible from Robert
it.
Oliver.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I still get it out every so
Hi.
often.
You didn't.
You're good.
Okay, I guess we can get started. It's a couple minutes after 7 or 8, as that clock says. Okay, book 12, the last book. Yes, please. So we left off book 11 with Michael explaining the story of the Bible, getting up to Noah and the destruction of the world. And then we start book 12, as one who in his journey baits at noon, though bent on speed. So here the archangel paused betwixt the world destroyed and the world restored, if Adam aught perhaps might interpose. So what he's saying is, as someone who's on a long journey stops at noon, even in a hurry, Michael stops talking, pausing his story between the world destroyed and the world restored, so that Adam has a chance to ask questions. Apparently, Adam had no questions. Then, with transition sweet, new speech resumes. Thus thou hast seen one world begin and end, and man as from a second stock proceed. Much thou hast yet to see, but I perceive thy mortal sight to fail. Objects divine must needs impair and weary human sense. Henceforth, what is to come I will relate. Thou, therefore, give due audience and attend. So, what he's saying here is that all the things that Adam has seen has probably weakened him basically from mental exhaustion because he's seeing visions of what's to come. So what he says he's going to do is he says, now pay attention, I'm just going to talk now. So he's now just going to relate what it is that's going on. So, lines 13 to 62, he says, there are a few in the second source of man to start with. The judgment fresh on their minds, they feared God and multiplied. Michael tells Adam about the tyrant Nimrod, which leads to the story of the Tower of Babel and the confusion of languages. 63 to 78, whereto thus Adam fatherly displeased. Adam laments over Nimrod and the Tower of Babel. So fatherly displeased, he's kind of, I picture my father looking at me going, no. 79 to 110, Michael commends Adam's assessment of Nimrod and the men who built the tower. He explains how, when a man ignores reason, great harm is released with immeasurable desires. He says that tyranny is allowed by God in judgment. God, tired of their sins, withdrew, resolving to leave men to their perverted ways. Does God do that? When man gets so perverse, he just leaves and says, have at it?
Romans 1.
Well, yeah.
It's several examples through the book of Judges. So yeah, he does it quite often. And one peculiar nation to select from all the rest, whom to be invoked, a nation from one faithful man to spring. Him on this side Euphrates yet residing, bred up in idol worship. Oh, that men, canst thou believe, should be so stupid grown, while yet the patriarch lived, who scaped the flood, as to forsake the living God and fall to worship their own work in wood and stone for gods. So Michael resumes, and he's talking about how one peculiar nation, Israel, is going to be raised up to spring from one faithful man, Abraham. Abraham, who lived on this side of the Euphrates River, brought up an idol worship. Can you believe that man can be so stupid? That's basically what he's saying. To worship things of wood and stone. But God Most High gives this one man a vision. Yet him God, the Most High, vouchsafes to call by vision from his father's house, his kindred and false gods, into a land which he will show him. And from him will raise a mighty nation, and upon him shower his benediction so that in his seed all nations shall be blessed. He straight obeys, not knowing to what land, yet firm believes. I see him, but thou canst not. With what faith he leaves his gods, his friends, and native soil, Ur of Chaldea, passing now the ford to Haran. After him a cumbrous train of herds and flocks, and numerous servitude, not wandering poor, but trusting all his wealth with God, who called him in a land unknown. So I think that's pretty straightforward. Basically, he left his father's house in faith going forth, and he's not alone. He's got wealth, he's got servants, he's got flocks, and he's going to a place where God called him to a land unknown. Canaan he now attains. I see his tents pitched about Shechem, and the neighboring plain of Moreh. There by promise he receives gift to his progeny of all that land, from Hamath northward to the desert south. Things by their names I call, though yet unnamed. From Hermon east to the great western sea, Mount Hermon, yonder sea. each place behold and prospect as I point them. So he's basically saying, okay, he's arrived in Canaan. He's left God and his gods, his friends, native soil, and so on. He's passing through the ford of Haran. After him, a cumbrous train. And he says, he's now in Canaan. I see his tents pitched about Shechem and the neighboring plain of Moreh. Now we can assume at this point that if this were visually done, Michael is pointing to different places. It's like there's Shechem, he's in Shechem, which is over there, and there's the sea, and there's Moreh, and all over the place. He says that the land goes from Hamath south to the desert, from Hermon east to the great western sea, that is Mount Hermon to that sea. On the shore, Mount Carmel, there the double-sourced stream Jordan, the true limit eastward. What's wrong with this description? He's giving the boundaries of Israel.
Israel doesn't end at the Jordan?
No, it doesn't.
It goes all the way to the ocean.
The biblical definition of Israel goes out towards Iraq and goes over to the Mediterranean, but he's limiting it to this particular region. Why? Now, he knows the Bible. I'm sure he knows the biblical description of the land, but he doesn't use that. He uses basically what is to him the current boundaries of Israel.
Did you say
Even-
him as in the angel or Milton?
Milton. And actually, Israel actually didn't exist at the time, in Milton's time. So it's basically the land of, I don't even think the word Palestine even came into play then. So just Lebanon, that whole region. He says, but his sons shall dwell in Senir, that long ridge of hills. Senir is the mountain range that Mount Hermon is on. 141 to 172. Michael continues saying that the great deliverer will be a descendant of Abraham. Micah tells of Jacob's sons traveling to Egypt to meet Joseph, and all of Jacob's family goes to Egypt. Then after a time, Egypt forgets about Joseph, and fearing their numbers, enslaves them until two brothers are called to deliver his people. The two brothers are Moses and Aaron. 173 to 222. But first, the lawless tyrant. Ooh. Michael relates the plagues of Egypt, the hardness of Pharaoh's heart, and the ultimate release and flight of God's people. They get to the edge of Canaan and stop because the land is occupied by people trained in warfare. (223 to 244). Michael continues, saying that their delay served multiple purposes, including preparing them for war and establishing government. He tells Adam of the law given to Moses. That's an interesting statement that he has about the purpose for the delay of the, I guess they're not Israelites yet, but the Hebrew people, the why they wandered in the wilderness. And two reasons, he says: preparing them for war and establishing government. Were those the only reasons?
Maybe not the main one.
No, not the main reason. The main reason being to train them to rely on God. Thus, laws and rights established, such delight hath God in men, obedient to his will, that he vouchsafes among them to set up his tabernacle. The Holy One with mortal men to dwell. By his prescript, a sanctuary is framed of cedar, overlaid with gold. Therein an ark, and in the ark his testimony, the records of his covenant. Over these a mercy seat of gold, between the wings of two bright cherubim. Before him burned 7 lamps, as in a zodiac, representing the heavenly fires. A zodiac?
I was curious about that. Does zodiac mean like heavenly bodies?
Since the modern definition or reference of the zodiac is basically,
It's like is it just, does he mean like the constellations, or like, is it like another term for like pantheon? Like an astrological pantheon?
I'm thinking he's referring to the constellations, the breadth of the sky. I hope.
Well, that's because I think it's associated, I see where it says also, where is it, 7 lamps, which is, to me, an indirect referral to Israel and the lamps, I forget what is it, the menorah? Yeah, that's what but if I'm not mistaken, I think in this context is referencing something that has to do with the heavenlies.
Yeah.
I'll look it up.
So
Do you have a
I know
note?
that-
I think it has to do, because I think that is a Hebrew reference there.
I know that in the Middle Ages, or well, not the Middle Ages, at the time that Milton was writing, they only had 7 planets in the solar system line. They could not see Pluto or Neptune yet. So it was just the
Okay.
Sun, Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, and the Moon. Those were the 7.
What's your note?
Says that Josephus says the candlestick had 7 lamps in imitation of the 7 planets. That's what you said.
There you go. Okay. Over the tent, a cloud shall rest by day, a fiery gleam by night, save when they journey, and at length they come, conducted by his angel, to the land promised to Abraham and his seed. The rest were long to tell. How many battles fought, how many kings destroyed and kingdoms won, or how the sun shall in mid-heaven stand still a day entire, and night's due course adjourn, man's voice commanding, Sun, in Gibeon stand, and thou moon in the vale of Aelon, till Israel overcome. So call the third from Abraham, son of Isaac, and from him his whole descent, who thus shall Canaan win. So he says the rest of the story is too long to tell. There's a whole ton of battles. There's kings destroyed, kingdoms won. The sun stopped in midday for an entire day. The night didn't come, with a man's voice commanding, Sun in Gibeon stand. And Israel was the 3rd generation after Abraham, and from him all descendants will be called Israelites who won over Canaan. 270 to 284, Adam thanks Michael for the stories of Abraham. He says he is comforted to know that mankind has a hopeful future, unmerited. He does wonder why, with so many laws and sins described, why God would dwell with men. 285 to 299, to whom thus Michael, doubt not, but that sin will reign among them, as of thee begot. Ooh. And therefore was law given them, to evince their natural pravity, by stirring up sin against law to fight, that when they see law can discover sin, but not remove, save by those shadowy expiations weak, the blood of bulls and goats, they may conclude some bloods more precious must be paid for man, just for unjust, that in such righteousness to them by faith imputed, they may find justification towards God, and peace of conscience, which the law by ceremonies cannot appease, nor man the mortal part perform, and not performing cannot live. So Michael is basically saying, don't doubt, sin will reign over them, a trait received from you, Adam. Law was given them to show them their natural depravity by stirring up sin that defies the law, so that in the law they can discover their own sin. He says the law doesn't remove sin except by the temporary atonement through the blood of bulls and goats. They must realize that a more precious sacrifice of blood must be offered to pay for man's sins. They must learn that to earn his righteousness imputed to them by faith, they may find justification before God and peace in their conscience. The laws and ceremonies cannot provide this, nor can man do anything on his own behalf, and on his own he cannot have life. 300 to 309, Michael explains that the law is perfect, but imperfect in that it doesn't offer salvation, and that Moses wasn't the Redeemer needed. But Joshua, whom the Gentiles Jesus call, his name and office bearing, who shall quell the adversary serpent and bring back through the world's wilderness long wandered man safe to eternal paradise of rest. So who's he talking about? Jesus, yeah. Yeah, who his Hebrew name is Yeshua. So 315 to 371, Michael tells Adam about the period of the judges and of David, in whose line will come a son, the seed of the woman. He tells of Solomon, the captivity by the Babylonians, the return. He tells of the dissension, the occupation, the heavenly star, and the birth of Jesus. He ceased discerning Adam with such joy surcharged, as had like grief been dewed in tears, without the vent of words. He stopped and he looked at Adam, and Adam was just beaming with happiness. It's like, okay, there's hope. O prophet of glad tidings, finisher of utmost hope, now clear I understand what oft my steadiest thoughts have searched in vain, why our great expectation should be called the seed of woman. Virgin Mother, hail, high in the love of heaven, yet from my loins thou shalt proceed, and from thy womb the Son of God most high. So God with man unites. Needs must the serpent now his capital bruise expect with mortal pain. Say where and when their fight, what stroke shall bruise the victor's heel? So Adam basically is saying, yay, and where's this going to happen? Where's this battle? 386 to 398, Michael says, it won't be much of a battle. As the Son has the Father's power. He says, Satan won't die, but Satan's work in Adam's heart will die. It can only be done by fulfilling the obedience to the law on the penalty of death. The penalty to thy transgression due, and due to theirs, which out of thine will grow. So only can high justice rest paid. The law of God exact he shall fulfill both by obedience and by love, though love alone fulfill the law. Thy punishment he shall endure by coming in the flesh to a reproachful life and cursed death, proclaiming life to all who shall believe in his redemption, and that his obedience imputed becomes theirs by faith, his merits to save them, not their own, though legal works. So he says the penalty for your transgression is going to come due, and it's due for all mankind. So only high justice can pay for your rest or your entrance into paradise. He says Jesus will fulfill the law of God perfectly. He will endure your punishment by coming in the flesh to a sinful life and a cursed death, proclaiming life to all who believe in his redemption. So his merits save them, not their own works of the law. 411 to 435, Michael explains the revilement, judgment, and condemnation of the Son. He speaks of the crucifixion and his death, burial, and resurrection, and how it nullifies Adam's sentence. 436 to 465, he speaks of the Son's appearances after the resurrection and of the apostles who he leaves in charge of spreading the gospel. They are not to go just to the children of Abraham, but those who share faith everywhere. He speaks of the ascension, triumphant victory over Satan, and the earth will be a paradise, a happier place than the current Eden. 466 to 468, Michael stops speaking and Adam joyfully replies. He replies by praising this good news and giving God the glory. He then asks, who will protect the believers after he ascends? Won't the enemies of truth deal worse with his followers? Michael answers, definitely. He then explains the ministry of the Holy Spirit, how it works within believers, putting the law in their hearts and protecting them from Satan's fiery darts. He explains how the Spirit first indwelled the apostles, giving them gifts and abilities. Any questions so far? Okay. 502 to 551, Michael continues, explaining that the apostles led many to faith, their stories written down, and then they died. He goes over the challenges the church faced, including false teachers, false doctrine, and persecution. He says the world goes on, bad to good men, good to bad men, until the day the Son returns and raptures the church to usher in the new heaven and the new earth. So he goes through the entire Bible. 552 to 573, Adam last replied, "How soon hath thy prediction, seer blessed, measured this transient world, the race of..." He's basically saying, when's it going to come? Come on, let me know. And what can Michael say? I don't know. To whom thus also the angel last replied, "This having learned, thou hast attained the sum of wisdom. Hope no higher. Though all the stars thou knewest by name, and all the ethereal powers, all secrets of the deep, all nature's works, or works of God in heaven, air, earth, or sea, and all the riches of this world enjoyest, and all the rule, one empire. Only add deeds to thy knowledge answerable. Add faith, add virtue, patience, temperance. Add love, by name to come called charity, the soul of all the rest. Then wilt thou not be loath to leave this paradise, but shalt possess a paradise within thee, happier far." So he's saying you've learned everything that the breadth of human history can ever possibly learn. And he says you enjoy all the rule, one empire, and he's talking about adding deeds to your knowledge answerable, adding faith, virtue, patience, he goes through this list of virtues. And then he says, then you will not be loath, or you will not hate leaving this paradise, but you'll possess a paradise within yourself, much happier for it. Let us descend now, therefore, from this top of speculation. They were on the top of a mountain, if you recall. For the hour precise exacts our parting hence, and see the guards by me encamped on yonder hill. Expect their motion, at whose front a flaming sword, in signal of remove, waves fiercely round. So he looks over and he sees the angels with the flaming swords, and they're going like this. It's time, wrap it up. We may no longer stay. Go, waken Eve. Her also I with gentle dreams have calmed, portending good, and all her spirits composed to meek submission. Thou at season fit, let her with thee partake what thou hast heard, chiefly what may concern her faith to know, the great deliverance by her seed to come, for by the woman's seed on all mankind, that ye may live, which will be many days, both in one faith unanimous, though sad, with cause for evils past, yet much more cheered with meditation on the happy end. So Michael says, okay, it's time, we got to go. Go wake Eve. I've given her pleasant dreams to basically ease her mind from leaving this happy place. 606 to 608. They go down the hill to the bower where Eve was sleeping, but she's already awake and spoke with words that were not sad. Whence thou returnest and whither wentest, I know. For God is also in sleep, and dreams advise, which he hath sent propitious some great good presaging, since with sorrow and heart's distress wearied I fell asleep. But now lead on. In me is no delay. With thee to go is to stay here. Without thee here to stay is to go hence unwilling. That's a little confusing, but thou to me art all things under heaven, all places thou, who for my willful crime art banished hence. This further consolation yet secure I carry hence. Though all by me is lost, such favor I unworthy am vouchsafed. By me the promised seed shall all restore. So So Eve says, I knew you were coming and where you went. God is also in sleep and advised me in good dreams some good news of the future, since I went to sleep full of sorrow and distress. But now lead on. I don't want to go. I don't want to wait. I will go with you, which is good as is staying here. Without you, here is to go unwillingly. You are to me all things under heaven, all places, who for my chosen crime is banished from here. So she's basically saying she's become compliant. She's been given these visions, these dreams, so that she now has her mind is now at ease. So she doesn't feel so bad about leaving, and now she's saying, "Now let's go. I don't want to wait. You know, if I wait, I may want to stay." So she's saying, "Hurry up and pack. Let's go." So spake our mother Eve, and Adam heard, well pleased, but answered not. For now too nigh the archangel stood, and from the other hill to their fixed station, all in bright array the cherubim descended. On the ground gliding meteorous, as evening mist risen from a river o'er the marish glides, and gathers ground fast at the laborer's heel, homeward returning. High in front advanced the brandished sword of God, before them blazed, fierce as a comet, which with torrid heat and vapor as the Libyan air adust, began to parch that temperate clime. So Adam doesn't respond to her, because soon the archangel Michael is standing there, basically waiting, like I can see him tapping his foot. Come on, let's go. From the other hill, they see the cherubim who had descended. On the ground, they're gliding as evening mist, and they gather ground fast at the laborer's heel, homeward returning. So they're returning to heaven because it's time. And high in front advanced the brandished sword of God, before them blazed, fierce as comet, which with torrid heat and vapor as Libyan air dust began to parch that temperate clime. So the fire that is in the swords is laying waste to the ground. Whereat in either hand the hastening angel caught our lingering parents, and to the eastern gate led them direct. So Michael grabs them by the hand and starts leading them to the gate. And down the cliff as fast to the subjected plain, then disappeared. So Michael leads them out, down a cliff to the plain, and he disappears. So Michael is now out of the picture. They, looking back, all the eastern side beheld of paradise, so late their happy seat, waved over by that flaming brand. The gate with dreadful faces thronged and fiery arms. Some natural tears they dropped, but wiped them soon. The world was all before them, where to choose their place of rest, and Providence their guide. They, hand in hand, with wandering steps and slow, through Eden took their solitary way. So they looked back and they saw the eastern side of paradise. Over the gate waved a flaming sword, basically a warning, don't come back. They shed some tears and wiped them away. And now the world was all before them, and they just had to choose their place of rest. So hand in hand, they walk off into the sunrise. I would assume they left them in the morning. So, and that's the end.
Now, is that suggesting that that's when they were removed from the Garden of Eden?
Mhm.
Very, very different ending than biblical. But that's the license that he uses to be creative in his writing.
Yeah, that's his poetic license. Yeah,
Sure.
He's leaving you with an image of, they look back, tears fall from their eyes, they wipe them away, and then they face their future hand in hand. So it's a hopeful future for them, because they now know what well, they know what their punishment is, and they lament that, but they know about the future, the hope that's to come, the
The seed that is going to come forth from Eve.
yeah,
So she will participate, she will have a role in redemption.
right. Yeah, so this ends on it's not a high note. It's a somber note, but it's hopeful for Adam and Eve. And they know full well, or Adam understands full well what's going to happen. He doesn't know the detail, but he knows, okay, we're going to have two sons. One's going to kill the other. We'll go on. Okay. So, any comments, questions? Is it an odd place to end?
No, it's totally fitting. Felt like a really classical ending as they like walk together
Yeah.
to face the future.
Mhm.
The comment about God is asleep is really curious. For God is, line 611, for God is also in sleep and dreams advise.
Yeah.
So that's a very interesting comment.
Well, but it's carried out in the Bible in several places, isn't it? Where people are in their sleep, they have visions.
Right, and then also it could go to him resting maybe on the seventh day. It doesn't say sleep.
No, it's saying God is in sleep, not asleep.
Oh, forgot.
He's in sleep. He's in here. He's in her dreams.
Okay, thank you for that clarification.
That's really good, because God does never sleep.
No.
Right.
Thankfully.
That's why I was reading it wrong and it just really captured my attention, but thank you for the correction.
Yeah, and it says, in dreams advise, which he hath sent propitious. So he sends dreams to advise us.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's like Sodom and Gomorrah, when the two angels grabbed Lot and his wife to get them out of Sodom so he could destroy it, but then his wife looked back and.
Yeah, but nobody was warned not to look back this time.
Right. I know, but it's like he knows that story and he's kind of copying it.
Yeah, I mean,
Does it
and
seem like that?
honestly, the way I picture the way he describes it is there's this, Eden is up here and Earth is down here. The rest of Earth is down here, and they come down this cliff and they look back and up, and they see the flaming sword, and okay, we can't go back. So, I mean, they can't really see the beauty of Eden when they're down on the plains of whatever, Mora. Yes,
I could just critique Milton a little bit about how he chose to tell the
go
story.
right ahead.
I kind of, considering the first main section of the book is so focused about Satan and the demons and what they have going on, and I would have preferred it to be a little more well-rounded and come back to that. Now what? Because he was sent forth as a champion to go accomplish this thing. Well, I would like to see the perspective of how demons took that on and what they thought about what happened and how they kind of went from there. I mean, of course, in reality, we can put that together, but I don't know what Milton's works or Paradise Regained, if it follows that at all.
No, it doesn't.
I would have liked that. Have
it's
the beginning and the end.
Paradise Regained is more of it's more of just Satan and Jesus. The last we saw of Satan, he'd returned to Pandemonium, and he was expecting cheers, but instead everybody turns into snakes and they hiss. And then Milton says this is going to happen every year on the same date, which I'm like, wait a minute, hell is eternal. Do they have a calendar in hell?
Maybe that goes back to
Just do it every day. Wait, yeah. Yeah.
I think I guess, although it had that, it felt like a weird placement, I guess, to me. I felt like the structure of the story, I feel like would have flowed a little better to have included that segment here at the end, because it starts with Satan, you end with Satan, because he's kind of who we're seeing the story through.
That's-
I had it my way.
I understand what you're saying. And in Milton's defense, what we're seeing is the result of Satan's work. Which leads me to one of the questions that I posed in the first class. We talked about epic poetry and the characteristics of epic poetry. There's an epic hero, an epic quest. There's, we talked about some of the structure. We pointed out the different invocations, and it starts in the middle of things and so on. One of the questions I asked was, who is the epic hero and what is the epic quest? And just to give you a little hint, Milton turns the idea of the epic hero on its head. Sorry? Speak up, speak up.
Satan is the epic hero?
Why would you say that?
Well, he's the one, I guess it's not like he orchestrated all of this, obviously, because this is all within God's plan and within his providence. But I guess he is the one who goes and rallies the forces against a seemingly horrible odds. He's got nothing going for him. And even you said in one of the classes, you said if he wasn't Satan, this would be kind of awesome. This would be kind of inspiring, but then he's Satan, he's on the wrong side. So it's everything but.
Yeah.
But he does kind of have that feeling of the epic hero going to face the unfaceable.
Okay.
That's all I got.
Okay. Anybody agree with that, or anybody have any other ideas?
It kind of reminds me of Bonnie and Clyde. You know how infamous they were, but yet people were going through the Depression. And so they saw them as sort of like
Anti-heroes.
heroes.
Yeah.
And so I think that's what we're trying to say maybe is, and that's kind of a modern day, but I think that's people actually did look at them and go, wow, they're like heroes. And it's weird. And I read all that story about Bonnie and Clyde, and I was like, wow, yeah, they came through Dallas, they robbed banks, they killed people. But how could you call them heroes? But
Yeah.
people just in their distorted minds would.
Well, during the Depression, I think everybody had in their minds, what if I robbed a bank? Not everybody, but
Yeah.
I was wondering, because I do agree that, I do think that Satan is kind of the anti-hero of this work, but I also wonder if Christ is kind of meant to be the hero. I mean, because he clearly is, but the story kind of, as opposed to starting in the middle of things, it almost ends in the middle of things.
yeah.
Because the story hasn't really ended yet. We actually just got 2 chapters on how it will end, where he's just not going to write it all. So is that kind of also a possibility?
Well, then you have to think of what is the epic quest and what is so the epic quest is what covers the entire story. So if Jesus is the epic hero, does his epic quest encompass the whole story?
No. Because it extends beyond the
See,
story?
an argument could be made for it. But
I think I agree with the group so far. I think that Satan is the epic hero because, and the epic quest has been accomplished because his goal is the end state, is the expulsion. So we have the epic hero as Satan because that was his mission in the beginning, mission accomplished by the expulsion. So I agree with the group.
yes, that is correct. Satan, see, Milton, in no epic poem to this point has a character that everybody agrees is evil ever been the hero. So Milton throws it in there, and that's part of his genius. Is he throws it in there, saying, what if Satan is the hero of the story? I mean, yes, we all agree he's not a true hero, but in a literary sense, he is the epic hero of this work, and his quest is to corrupt mankind. But was that always his quest?
He didn't start out that way.
Right.
He did not. They wanted, well, I'll be quiet, but it didn't start out that way. Good point. Good
I'm
point.
sorry.
He just wanted to hurt God and then later discovered this is how.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So he had an ultimate goal of doing something to hurt God. And then it kind of whittled down into, oh, this is the best way to do it.
Right.
And he works his way in and he executes his mission. He fulfills his goal. He's not any worse off now than he was before, except for the snake thing. Yeah, the snake thing's kind of nasty. Except he now can go to Earth and wreak havoc. And Earth is a better place to live than hell, some would say.
But now let me throw this out. Did he really hurt God? Because even in the narrative, we hear that there's a plan. So I want to change my vote. I voted initially for the epic quest being the expulsion of Adam and Eve. Scratch that. I think the epic quest, as you all said, is to hurt God. But then with that being the epic quest, with that being said, he really didn't hurt God. Perhaps disappointed, but really not hurting, because in this we see that we have a plan of redemption.
Yeah, can Satan actually hurt God?
No.
No. I mean, that's a fallacy. But is the fact that he can never truly achieve his goal going to negate the literary impact of this? Not really. I mean, from a biblical perspective, Satan can't hurt God. I mean, that's a given. But does Satan succeed? In his eyes, yes. In our eyes, yeah, he succeeded. But it isn't over. As you pointed out, the story's only halfway done. So Paradise Regained probably isn't what you think it would be. Let me just put that out there. It's very good, but it's not what you think it is.
And to remember that if you approach it from the teaching of dualism, God against, then you walk away with a different perspective. But then, as you said, if you approach it from the perspective of God, the devil is God's devil, then you get another perspective. At least I do in my work mind. I get another perspective. So it's entertaining either way it goes. I think it's a good piece of work.
Yeah, I think Milton did his job of presenting the story of the fall in such a way that it makes you think.
Absolutely.
For me, actually, and I read it 4 or 5 times over the summer. I got something more out of it each time I read it, and I appreciate his language, the way he presented things in such a way where I just shake my head and I go, man, if I could write like this, I wouldn't be unemployed. But it's a masterful piece of literature, and it is the biggest challenge to Paradise Lost for anybody is, first of all, the subject itself is heavy. And when I mentioned Paradise Lost to my sister, she's like, ugh. I know. I mean, there are much lighter books you could read, you could study, but this has meat. And this is the sort of thing I enjoy reading and teaching and talking about and discussing. And I mean, it's what I feast on. um, I just can't make a living at it, it's a shame. But so, is there anything else? Any other questions, comments, feedback? Was this format, the presentation, good? Okay.
Yes, it was. I think at least for me, I enjoyed it so much more because of my faith. So it is heavy and a lot is based on the reader. If you're going in and you don't have a clue. I mean, a lot of this, we go in knowing
Mhm.
better and we can weigh our biblical knowledge against what Milton is saying. And that sways us, so it's an excellent piece of work, I think. I really enjoyed it.
And there are sections of it that are just beautifully written. I mean, the language is melodic almost.
Oh, yeah, what was that section? I think it was last or the class before last, where it was just beautiful. It was
Well-
great. What was that section, Greg? It was,
Well, 2 books ago, the most impactful was the way Adam spoke to Eve,
right, I think that's.
which wasn't melodious or beautiful. It was certainly impactful, and you could see his attitude,
Exactly.
But no, his early on in the work, his description of Eden and the well, and I mean the imagery that he gives us at times is just it's cinematic almost. You know, after Eve eats the fruit and she's carrying the bough to Adam, Adam in the meanwhile is weaving a halo of flowers for her. And he's holding that in his hand, and then he sees her and realizes what she's done, and he drops the flowers to the ground. I mean, that is cinematic. I mean, that is a scene that I can see the flowers slow motion falling to the ground. Right. And then, like the scene we just saw of them turning around and looking back at Eden and then walking on. I mean, there's several parts in here that are cinematic in the way he describes them. But the description he had of hell, the burning sand and the lake of fire, which wasn't all of hell yet, I guess. And then how they could dig into the ground and pull out these building materials for pandemonium. I mean, it's just fascinating the way his mind worked through all that. But I do appreciate the way he's writing. He gets a little too wordy at times. He's very bad with punctuation. Paradise Regained is better. Some English teacher might have gotten to him and said, "Hey, what's with all the semicolons? Come on." But no, it's a masterful piece of literature, and I mentioned to Charles about teaching Paradise Regained in the spring, and he thought it was a really good idea. So I'm going to meet with him, and I'll send something out about that when I know more. It might not be until January, but I thank you all for coming. I know it got a little bit long-winded at times, but tonight was different because it's one book and we got through it pretty quick. So yeah, thank you. Hey. I'm not sure how to take that. Did I use that many more words? Yeah. And
So
so
one question, I'm sorry.
it's all right.
So how did your surgery go?
Oh, I'm going to end the stream here. So,
Oh. Not good?
no.